device that you can log into Mentimeter on, you can answer the questions in the chat and one of our staff will add your answer to the Mentimeter for you. So just tap your screen, then tap the chat icon to type in your answers. And with that, I will now turn it over to our SANDAG chairwoman and county supervisor, Nora Vargas.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It is so good to see all of you. I mean, well, I don't get to see all of you, but to be here with all of you. I just wanted to make sure that I welcome you, welcome everybody, and thank you for how we can be part of a planning future of region. I'm very proud to serve as the county, not only the county board of supervisors, but then to also serve as your chair of SANDAG. Everyone in our region absolutely has a place to go is one of our main priorities. People need to get to work, or young people. I think I said somebody here said I need access to transportation close to my house. I think in one of the comments that people wrote. So I just want to make sure that folks know that, you know, we are very, very much interested in hearing from all of you. And we also want to make sure that here at SANDAG, our team is working to make sure that all those experiences that you have, from going to your doctor's appointments to visiting family and friends and going to places, you know, for fun and for work or for school, that we help make it easier for all of you. Today, we're going to be sharing more about the work that we do for the 2025 regional plan, and then also how the public can help shape the future of our transportation system. That's extremely important for all of us as a board. Your input is absolutely vital as we work on transportation networks that are convenient, healthy, and safe for everyone, which is going to be enjoyed by generations to come. Your feedback is very important from the community, as it's already, you know, we've already had an enormous impact on our current projects and programs, which we'll talk about a little bit later, our team will. So all of you have a chance to make sure that you share what your priorities are. We want that feedback, and we want to make sure that you talk about what your transportation needs are. And also we have an opportunity in the next few months to really identify solutions that is going to make it easier for you to get to where you need to go in short term and long term. So we're really looking forward to hearing from you today so we can plan a more sustainable and resilient region for everyone. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to the team so that they can share some of the details. I know Robin is going to be going into details on all of this information, but I wanted to stop by and say thank you and look forward to hearing from all of you.
Thanks so much, Chairwoman. Appreciate it. I'm also going to have Tuere join us here on the screen. I'm Robin Wapner. I'm the Director of Public Affairs here at SANDAG. And Tuere?
Yeah, thanks, Robin. I'm Tuere Faola, and I'm a Principal Regional Planner here at SANDAG.
So Tuere and I are super thankful that all of you took time out of your day, out of your night to join us for such an important conversation tonight. We are kicking off the 2025 regional plan, and we cannot do this without you. So thank you for being here. We're going to go ahead and get warmed up using our Mentimeter tonight. You see the first prompt on the screen. Before we jump into it, we want to know, who's even heard of SANDAG? Have you ever participated in one of our workshops before? Is this your first time? It looks like already we have some eager participants. And for the most part, this might be the first time that you all are joining us for a workshop. Tuere, how many workshops have you been in for SANDAG?
Oh, I don't know that I could count. It's good to see that we have a lot of people who are learning about us for the first time. So really good.
And then we've got our regulars. It looked like there were about 9 or 10 that have been more than one workshop so far. Well, it's good to see those of you that have joined us before, and we're happy to see those of you who have not. So let's start off. For those who may not have heard of SANDAG, who are we? What do we do? That's a really difficult question. And we actually spent a lot of time trying to figure out how can we explain that in a way that everyone can understand. Because the first thing I want you to know is we are your agency. We are a taxpayer funded agency, and we're here to serve the region, to serve you. So it's really important from our perspective that you not only know who we are, what we do, but more importantly, how you can be a part of that process. And tonight's workshop is really the first step to doing that. But I'm going to make our best effort to sort of simply explain who SANDAG is. In 4 words you see here on the screen: we plan, we build, we preserve, and we provide. So what does that actually mean? We plan the region's transportation system. So whether you're on the roads, the highways, riding your bike, taking transit, if it's a regional transportation part of the transportation system, SANDAG was part of planning and building that for you. And that brings us into the build. So you can see here a picture of actually the Mid-Coast Trolley. That was something that we opened up the extension of a little over a year ago. We were super excited about it, but we do everything from small projects to big projects. The regional bikeway that might be in your community, to the future Otay Mesa East port of entry, to helping to stabilize the bluffs in Del Mar. You've been hearing about what's going on along the Losan Rail Corridor. Maybe we are a part of that. We also preserve our natural resources, and we make sure that all of our projects are working to support a safe and healthy environment. It's really important that we're not only just doing the mitigation that's required for some of our transportation projects, but we are going above and beyond to make sure that we are doing everything we can to protect and preserve the environment for generations to come. And last but certainly not least, we provide. When we say we provide, that's resources directly to our communities, like the free youth transit passes that we're providing through the Youth Opportunity Pass program, or we give funding to local jurisdictions, the cities that you live in, to help fix potholes on the roads in front of your houses. We also provide funding to help build and plan for housing, bikeways, and we have a ton of data. If you ever need information, data, please go to our website, check it out. That is how we make the decisions that we do. It's based on the data and how we can best understand what's going on throughout the region. So that's why it's so important that you're here tonight, because we do a little bit of everything that really impacts your lives on a daily basis. And we can't do that without you being involved in the conversation. So let's get to know you a little bit better with our next question on Mentimeter. We'd like to hear from you. How do you and the people that you know typically get around? Are you driving? Are you walking? Do you take the bus? What are all the different ways that you move around the region? Let's see what comes up. We've got some drivers.
And some of you might do more than one form, so feel free to put in if you are walking for part of the trip, taking transit for part of that. You may be biking or taking transit.
Let's see them popping up. So we've got trolley, bike, car, walking, Amtrak. There's someone using the Losan corridor. Oh, a cargo bike. I've been seeing those a lot online lately. Car share. SANDAG actually administers a van pool program, in case you didn't know. We work with employers throughout the San Diego region to help support van pool programs. You can see if that's an option where you work. Walking, now that the weather's better, that's going to help us all. Driving a hybrid. We also have a major electric vehicle program, so we're definitely helping to support not only building the infrastructure that you need for EV cars, but accessing EV cars and e-bikes as well. Okay, that's super helpful. So now that we know how you currently get around, we want to hear from you on if there's any other options that you wish you had to get around the San Diego region. So do you currently drive but wish you could get to work a different way? Or do you usually walk to school but wish you could get there a different way? Safer cycling. Oh, a streetcar.
I like that community shuttle, is interesting.
E-bike shares. Let's see, is there more scrolling? Anything you haven't seen before, Tueri? Oh, a solar vehicle.
I don't know where you saw that one when it scrolled, but I saw quite a few. Oh, I see, solar vehicle. I saw quite a few bike share.
Better traffic flows, yes.
Jitneys.
Traffic. Jitney.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, thank you for sharing, and please do keep sharing. We're collecting all of this information, and Tueri and the rest of the team here at SANDAG is going to use this to help inform all of the work that we're doing going forward. But as you saw, there's such a difference in opinion on behavior and how people currently are getting around, how people want to be getting around, and that's really what makes our region so unique and what makes our job here at SANDAG so challenging, but satisfying as well when we get it right. You know, we have more than 3.3 million people who live throughout the San Diego region. It's a $240 billion economy. There's a lot going on here. But one of the advantages that we have here is that we are a very distinct region. We have 18 cities and the county, as well as our 17 tribal governments, and we are super proud and lucky that we share the border with Mexico. So as a mega binational region, we take that into consideration and how we can really support our binational community and the folks and the goods that are traveling around that mega region. And then of course, we can't forget the major military installations that call the San Diego region their home as well. So there's a lot of, you know, different characteristics and factors that we need to take into consideration as we're working on the transportation network. And SANDAG is a place that those conversations happen because we are the one place in the region where every city and county comes together on a regular basis to talk about these regional issues. We get our direction from our board of directors, and the board is comprised of elected officials that represent each one of those jurisdictions that I was just talking about. It's the board that makes those funding decisions. They decide how we're going to be spending those taxpayer dollars that we're collecting every year on what projects to make everyone's lives throughout the San Diego region better and easier and healthier, hopefully. We're also very lucky to have advisory members from the California Department of Transportation, the US military, the government of Mexico. We are the only metropolitan planning organization in the country that has the country of Mexico as part of our board of directors, again, reflecting the importance of the binational region. But we couldn't do any of this work if it wasn't for the folks like you that are joining us here tonight. In order for SANDAG to be successful, it's important that we continue to partner with the communities. And so we are regularly looking for opportunities that we can engage with you, partner with you, and make sure that the projects that we're implementing truly reflect the needs of your communities. And so we'll go to the next slide. As a result of that, we have been able to deliver so much for the region. And you see just a few examples of those projects here. Some of them, just to name a few, for example, we've got the City Heights to Downtown Rapid Bus Line, our affordable housing development grants that we've been handing out. We also continue to build out our regional network of bikeway lanes and are continuing to implement our digital equity program, which is helping people across San Diego region get access to technology and the internet. You may have seen that we've been opening up some new carpool lanes on the I-5, and I mentioned the Los San Rail corridor in Otay Mesa East earlier. Each one of these projects started from a conversation like this with you tonight. And so that's how we start talking about our next regional plan. Tori's going to talk you through what the regional plan actually is, but one thing I'll say is that that really is the vision, is the blueprint for the long-term needs of each one of our communities. And so before we get into the technical details of what a regional plan is, we have another question for you. When you think about the next 20 years, how do you think people are going to be getting around? What are the things that we should be thinking about as we put together the next transportation network? Let's see some of the answers that come up. And how different or similar they are to the answers we saw before.
Still quite a bit of transit.
Oh, you've got the gondolas.
AI,
Yes.
someone put in their AI. That would be
technology.
Yeah, that'd be my children's preference.
Teleportation, that's my number one
Yes.
wish.
Oh, the high-speed bullet train.
How infrastructure and mobility talk to each other. Technology is going to be a huge component of the next regional plan, like it was in the last one. Spaceships.
Spaceships.
Mm-hmm. Lots of sharing again.
Mm-hmm. More electric cars.
Mopeds. Okay, well, Tori, I hope you're getting a lot of good ideas from that. Legs.
Yeah, legs.
Yes.
I like that one. that still will be in the future.
Okay, well, then I think I'll hand it over to Tori now to get into the regional plan.
Thanks, Robin. So before I go into talking a whole lot about what the regional plan is, I think on our next slide, we're actually have a short video that we're going to have you watch that I think really helps to just give a simple explanation about that. So we'll watch that first and then we'll continue with the presentation.
Where to?
Let us show you.
To the 10,000 connections that bring San Diego together.
To the people and the places that make this region like nowhere else.
These connections get us to our jobs.
To the homes we live in and the neighborhoods we visit.
But they're much more than that. They're part of a bigger plan.
A transportation plan that gives San Diego more options.
More access and more ways to be together.
What's more is that we're not starting from scratch.
We're taking what's already working and making it better.
With big moves towards new technology, the future is in reach.
So how do we do it?
With big dreams, smart moves, and by including everyone.
It's a plan that will drive us and move us.
But most of all, it will connect us.
Thank you. And that was a video that we had put together when we were developing our 2021 regional plan, but I think the content and the information is still really relevant as to what it means when we're developing a regional plan. But to summarize, when we're talking about what is a regional plan, we're really trying to talk about, what is this going to be in terms of guiding us in the way that how are we going to get around the region? It's also preparing us for how we're going to grow and change over the next 20-something years. And it really talks about a lot of really important issues, some of those things that Robin already mentioned about how we're going to use the land that's around us, how we're going to improve our housing, how the air will get cleaner, and how people will get to and from jobs, medical, and all of the important things that they need to do. And so this slide here really goes into talking about what are the different content pieces that go into a regional plan, because there is quite a lot. And so we want to take some time and just kind of explain to you what that is. And so first, what you can see here on the slide is that we're talking about data and research. Robin mentioned going to our website because we have a lot of really good data on our website. But when we're developing a regional plan, we use the most up-to-date data about where people are at in our region, how we think the population is going to grow, how people are moving around, and where is it that we know people want to go. A lot of times the places that people want to go in the future are often a lot of times it's places that you're going to right now. And so we try and use data to help us to understand and predict how you're still going to move in the future, where people are going to live in the region, how many jobs we're going to have, and where we think all of those jobs are going to be located. We then look to create a vision with our transportation network, which is really just our projects. What are the different projects that we need in our region, and how can we reduce traffic? How can we give people more options like transit to be able to get around? And how can we just simply make it easier? So when you're trying to get to work or to school, that you can do that in a safe and efficient way. And this, also really includes looking at how much it's going to cost to provide those options and how we're going to actually pay for it. We also predict the possible, impacts and effects of all of this work on our environment. And so we do that through a report that's called an environmental impact report. And we try to find ways on how we can try to either avoid some of the negative impacts that sometimes, building these very large mega transportation projects can have on our environment. So we do that through that report. And then we also, need to put together a financial plan that really looks at how we pay for this. And we need to go out into the public and have a conversation, just like we're having tonight, and talk about what we're planning for, because we're really committed to providing transportation access and options for everyone in the region. And we're really also know that we need to pay special attention to communities that have historically not had as many opportunities or resources given to them in the past. So I think we'll go to the next slide. So we want to, not constantly talk at you. So we have a couple questions also sprinkled throughout our presentation. So, a question for you is, what would make it easier for you to get around? I know that we've already started talking about some of the things that we think will be there in the future, but thinking about where you are right now, what would really make it easier for you to get around? Okay, so we have a more rail and more frequent transit. I think the that's one that we continuously hear from a lot of our stakeholders, as well as from the community, that having transit that's more frequent also adds to the convenience of using it. Faster transit. Let's see, a lot here around transit. So faster transit, shorter headways. I also see we have some planning folks who are familiar with our lingo by saying headways and as such. More walkable communities.
We have someone that wants rail on the 15.
Yeah.
No
Okay.
potholes.
No potholes. And more dedicated bus lanes. This is great. Okay. I think we've heard, like I said, some of this feedback we have heard before, so it's good to see that, to hear that this is still something that's really important to those of you who are with us tonight. And, of course, we're not starting from zero. So I do want to make that very clear. While we've heard some of the feedback before, it's great to see some of the additional things that were added there. But we really have been listening to the community over the past few years, and we've heard a lot of the things that you're saying very loud and clear. And so this slide here captures a lot of that feedback that we've heard, that you're really looking for, projects that can give you transportation options now, that can be done, projects that aren't going to take the full 30 years to complete, but that you can have solutions that can be carried forward now. And some of you are looking for projects that are going to really be focused on your community and helping you. I saw things in the Mentimeter that were around walkways and pathways, right? Those are things that are very specific to your community. They're also things that really focus on making sure you have a safe way to travel when you're walking within your community. So I won't go through each and every one of these, but transportation options to get to your work, to get to medical, making sure that we're thinking about equity and addressing our climate crisis, as well as looking at how we can make sure that transit is affordable for people to actually take. And then the one that I will say that's not in bold, but we definitely know it's been something that we've heard very loud and clear, is that we need to look for funding our projects and programs without the regional road usage charge. So these are all points that we are looking at as we're going through our planning process right now, as we're making options for our transportation system to be more convenient, to be safer, as well as healthier for everyone. So we'll go to our next slide. And this is another opportunity for us to continue to hear from you. And so, while I've said this is what we've heard and, and telling you what we've kind of summed up together, we want to make sure though, but is this what you agree with? And do you agree with what you've heard so far? So we're seeing some yes and mostly. So that's good.
Yes.
And quite a bit of yes. And some kind of. Okay. Well, it's looking like at least most of the things that we captured, and feel free to keep putting those responses into the Mentimeter while I'm talking. But I think one of the things that we can take away from what we see here on the slide is that we are capturing, if maybe it's not, as some of you said, mostly or kind of, it may not be every single bullet that was on that slide, but it seems that there are some of those things on the bullets that do resonate with you and that you agree with. So I think it's really good for us to hear and to understand that, because we want to make sure that we are hearing you and that we're listening and we're paying attention to the transportation system that we're building for all of San Diegans. Okay, we can go to the next one. So this is about some of the strategies that we've been working on to improve everyone's experience and how you get around within the region. And these strategies that we have in the plan, really helping to move our transportation system forward, they all are meant to work together. So it's not just one mode of transportation on its own that helps us to make our system as a whole work. Just like I think when we were talking about how do you all get around, some of you probably were putting in different types of modes that you use. You might walk to your trolley station, you might bike there. There's lots of ways, and everything needs to work together to make that trip complete. So when we're looking at the regional plan, we also look at a variety of strategies to work together to make that system work. And we're looking for those strategies to provide competitive transportation choices so that we can encourage people and make it convenient for them to have different ways that they can get around. We're also wanting to make sure that transit is more attractive. And this speaks to some of the points that were put into the Mentimeter, improving those travel times, making it more frequent so that you can have a bus or a trolley or train coming more often, and really investing in safety features like lighting and shelter, and making sure that our sidewalks are connected so that you can have a safe path of travel. We also want to make sure that we're connecting people to those transit centers and those bus stops. And so again, the walkways, the bikeways, really thinking about how can we take advantage of technology to make our roadways safer, to make them more adaptable to how we like to travel now in today's day and age with, booking rides on your phone, which we call on-demand services. And so we want to make sure that we're taking advantage of the technology, using the roads and the streets and all of our existing infrastructure in the best way that we can. And the strategies that we're looking at, we do have a plan that looks very long-term, but we also want to look at some short-term and sometimes temporary solutions so that we can make sure that we're thinking about what we heard. But you don't just want solutions that are going to be done in 30 years. You want to see solutions that you can see implemented within the next few years that can help you to get around now, while we're still planning for some of those long-term projects over the next couple of decades. So it's really trying to get a balance of helping people in our region now, and what are those projects that can help us to do that, and what do we need to continue to keep working on so that we can make sure we're setting ourselves up good for the future. So we'll go to the next slide. So I've said a lot of stuff, but one of the things that if you've been to any of our SANDAG presentations around the regional plan, you hear us talk about the requirements. And so I do want to mention that we do have requirements. So while we are wanting to make sure that we're doing everything that I spoke about, there are also requirements that we have to make sure we're keeping track of so that we can get the transportation funding that our region needs to actually build those projects. And national law requires us to provide equitable access to our transportation system, and it's no matter what the person's race, color, national origin are. We also have to really take into consideration, especially when we're building our facilities, people with disabilities, and making sure that it has ADA compliance. And we have to really think about creating projects that benefit the communities that have been historically left behind or have experienced environmental justices. And so in our plan, we also need to show how we're going to meet all of the air quality standards that are of the Clean Air Act. So we want to make sure that we're thinking about how can we improve and give clean air to everyone here. So the state of California, they also do require us to create a report that talks about all of the possible effects of the plan. So this is a slide here that just kind of captures all those requirements, but it's important for us to just mention it because while we're definitely wanting to put together a really great transportation system to serve everyone, we can't ignore that we have to make sure that we're meeting all of the state requirements. And the last bullet there is about reducing the amount of greenhouse gas emissions in our region in particular, and this is a target that's set by the state of California. They have asked us to put together a plan that reduces greenhouse gas emissions by 19%, and they're asking us to do that by 2035. So when we talk about projects and wanting to do things in the short term, it's because we want to give solutions to you that work now, but we also want to put forward solutions that can help to meet these targets and to meet these requirements that the state and the federal governments have put forward for us. So next slide. Okay, so I also want to mention, this isn't our first time doing a regional plan, and we have to do these plans every 4 years. And so we did learn a couple things that we're, wanting to make sure that we pay attention to as we're carrying forward and developing this next regional plan. But when we did put together the last regional plan, which was the 2021, it was approved by both the state and the federal government, but they did have a couple of concerns and things that they wanted to point out to us that they think we should, focus on and make sure that we're paying attention to as we continue with updating the regional plan, preparing it for the 2025 year. So a few things that you see here on the screen, they want us to look at how we can prioritize projects that reduce how much people are driving. And again, this helps to go towards that pollution, those requirements of the, emissions that we're trying to reduce 19% by 2035. So we talked about transit. A lot of you said, transit is something you'd like to see more of. Those types of projects, they're great in terms of helping us to be able to hit that target, and they are projects that we can look at how can we do those within the next, 10 years. 2035 is not that far away. They also want to make sure that regional and local plans that we're synced up, because while we're planning things at the regional scale, we need to make sure that we're carrying that forward when we're working with each of the jurisdictions, and that we're syncing up the work that we do and working together, and that we're sharing the same type of goals. And they also are asking us to look at ways to make sure we can have our transit system, speed it up a little bit, make sure that we're thinking about people who want to use it. If it's going to be used by more people, they really want to make sure that it's going to be convenient, and it needs to be competitive. It needs to be competitive to make it easy for you to get around. You don't want to have to sit and wonder when the next bus is coming. And so that's something that they've asked us to do, is to speed up the transit travel times. And then the other aspect that we do have to think about as we're putting together this plan is the state wants us to avoid adding as many highway lanes within our region. So it's just something that we have to consider, is that we need to look at how are we building out our system, and are there ways to improve it without necessarily always looking to add highway lanes. Next slide. So I think, one of the things you may be saying, so what does all this mean for you? And the good news is that we're working on a plan that will clean up our air. Right? We're looking at, everybody wants to have clean and healthy air. We're looking at how we can also provide a lot of different transportation options for you. And there are some effective ways that research says that we can do this. And we've seen this through some of the prior plans we put together. We've seen this through projects that we see working and in operations today. But adding or expanding our public transit system, just like we did with the Mid-Coast Trolley, those are things that are very good for us to do and are helpful in expanding our options within the region. We also can look at policies and things such as around changing pricing of transportation. For example, some of you on this call, or you may know someone who's taken advantage of the program that we have right now that provides free transit to people 18 and under. Or we can look at different things such as parking pricing to encourage people to try different transportation options. If you work downtown or some other places, you may already be very much accustomed to parking pricing. There's also things such as electric vehicle programs, looking at how we can start to expand the opportunity for more charging stations throughout the communities within San Diego County, planning for homes and economic areas closer to transit and active transportation like bike paths and walkways, and then just better technology to help the system run smoother. We've talked a little bit about wanting to make our transit go faster. Some ways we can do that is through something that they kind of say, think of a smart intersection. It knows the bus is coming. It knows, to be able to make sure that it can go through the lights quicker and easier, so that as you're on transit, it is more comparable to driving in terms of how much time it takes to get across a corridor. So at the end, all of these strategies need to work together, not just to clean up the air and reduce emissions, but it is about making sure that everyone in the region gets more choices for getting around. It's really about giving you choices, and giving you choices that are helpful to you and that you could see yourself using. And it also is about making sure that we meet all of those state and federal requirements that I mentioned earlier. So we'll go to the next slide. And I think actually here, I'm going to turn it back to Robin to talk about some of our outreach.
Yeah, so we've been sharing a lot of information with you tonight, and we keep saying how important it is that you all have a role in what the next regional plan looks like. So this is when we talk about how can you actually do that? When will all of you get the chance to shape this plan? As you can see on this slide, between now and the end of this year, we're going to be out in the community all over the region getting the public's feedback. In July and August, over the next couple of months, we want to hear from you about what your transportation needs are, so we can start to create a list of potential projects that will be included in the plan. That feedback is what's going to help us create the initial concept of the plan. That's what we're going to bring to our board in the early fall of this year. And that's also when we're going to be releasing a summary of some of the common, recurring themes that we've been hearing from you, to show how that feedback really has shaped the plan. And then between October and December, we're going to be working with you out in the community so that you can keep letting us know what your feedback is by making comments at our board meetings as the board is starting to consider that initial concept. And then after this year, starting next year, that's really when our modeling team here at SANDAG gets to work. So we've got that initial concept. We figured out, okay, we think this is what the next plan is going to look like. Now we have to actually measure and evaluate and see, does this hit the targets? Does this hit all the requirements that Tori just went over? And so that's when we're going to dig into that. And so we're going to be sort of quiet during that time, probably. It takes a lot of time to go through all of the details and do the required reporting that we need to do. And that's why we're starting to talk to you so early, so we can get your input in before we get to that stage. After that, over the next 2 years, our staff's going to be working out all of the details to make sure that the plan, like I said, satisfies our state and federal requirements. And then based on that concept, we're going to create a draft plan and an environmental report. And that's when you, as the public, our community, are going to have a chance to review it again and make comments in late 2025 before we finalize it and bring to the board for the final approval. But again, in the meantime, this is where you can make the biggest impact over the next few months. And don't worry, if you're signed in today, you're going to be getting emails about this all the time. And we're going to mention at the end of the meeting as well about the best ways to stay connected with us. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn it over to one of our senior regional planners, Cecily Taylor, who's going to go over how to use our online mapping tool that we're going to be pushing out next week. It's going to be available for all of you to leave comments on between now and the end of August, so that we can keep getting your feedback.
Yes, thank you, Robin. So again, while the comments you're sharing today will be taken into consideration, we're really excited to give you a preview of this social pinpoint tool that we expect to launch next week. So please keep an eye out and visit that mapping comment tool to tell us more about your transportation needs. On the map, you'll be able to see what transportation exists now and what we're thinking of for the future. So you can tell us what we might be missing that could even make it easier for you to get around. I'm going to share my screen now to give you a glance and show you how it works. All right. So once it's launched, you'll be able to find this tool on SANDAG's webpage. You'll be able to see it under the About, Engage section here, or you'll be able to see it also under the Regional Plan 2025 Regional Plan page. Once you're there, if you scroll down, you'll see the opportunities to learn more and get involved, and it'll be posted right there. Once you find that link, again, it's not posted yet, but when it is, if you click it, it'll take you to this landing page. And just a note that you can translate this page in the upper right-hand corner here, either into Spanish or any other language as needed. And on this landing page, there's an overview of what is the regional plan, this mapping tool that I'll get into in a second, other opportunities to get involved, and our project timeline, so you can keep track of where we are as we continue. But today, I really wanted to highlight this mapping tool. So let's click into it. When the map first opens, you'll see this welcome message, and it gives you a couple of examples of comments that you might want to share with us. So we've heard a lot of interest in transit today. Is there a particular route that would help you get to work? Or maybe a particular bike lane that would help you get to a shopping area nearby? Just a couple examples that we thought could help get the creative juices flowing. And this map too, or this page too, can be translated in this with this icon in the upper right-hand corner. I'll be walking through the instructions for this today, but when you come back to this tool later, if you need a refresher on any of the functions, you can navigate to this info icon, how to use this tool, and that'll give you a rundown of everything I covered today. For now, I'll exit out of this though. Now, what we're seeing on the map is all of the projects that were identified in the 2021 regional plan, as well as some test comments, and you'll continue to see additional public comments when it's live. So there's a lot to take in, we get that. It'll probably help to start by zooming in to a particular region that you're interested in. So you can zoom by the typical ways that you would in an online map tool. There's a toggle and zooming buttons on the right-hand side here. You can also click and drag to move the map around and recenter. And you can zoom using your scroll function on your computer or mobile device. If there's a particular area you want to jump to, this magnifying glass in the upper right is a good place to go. Maybe you live in Kearney Mesa, for example, and you want to jump right to that area. And that'll take us there. You could also type in a landmark that you're interested in or an address. I'll close out of that now. So now that we have a little bit more zoomed in view, we can see what's going on a little better. Let me talk you through what we're seeing on the map here. There's these lines on the map that when you hover over them, they'll sort of stand out or get bold. And those are representing the projects from the 2021 regional plan. You can find out more about those by clicking on those lines. And this pop-up will show what that project or what those lines are meant to represent, the kinds of projects that are included there. I'll show you a couple examples of that. And then these purple areas are also a type of project, transit center areas. And you can also see that same information looking at the lines on the map and comparing against the legend down here. If we click into the legend, we can see that same additional information of what those lines are meant to represent. Now, in addition to the lines on the map, there's also a few icons. Here's one example. This is actually another project type, the highway connectors that are also included in the legend. And maybe you want to clean up your view a little bit and focus on certain projects. The way you can do that is by going to this layers button that's right by the zoom toggle here. When you hover over it, this menu will pop up where you can turn off certain layers like this. You see that those come off of the map as I deselect them. I could put that back on for now though. And there's some other icons on the map as well. These are going to be all of the public comments that we've received so far. Since this isn't live yet, we just have a few test comments in there. The different icons represent different categories of comments. You can find out more about what those categories are meant to include on the left-hand bar here. And you can see all of the comments that have been posted so far by clicking all comments. Again, these are all just tests, but when this becomes posted, we'll receive all the public feedback and public comments that will show up in this list. You can also see these comments by clicking on the icons. If you see a comment that you agree with, you can click the like button, or if you disagree with something, similarly, the dislike button. And you can do that over in the map or over in the comments list. And once we start receiving a lot of public feedback, this list is going to get pretty long. Maybe when you're coming to this map, you're interested in a particular set of comments, and you can filter by categories by going to this filter icon in the upper right. Here we can turn off particular kinds of comments, and you'll see that they both come off of the map as well as the list of comments. So you can really simplify what you're looking at. You can also even search by certain terms if there's something in particular you want to see. And of course, that's all just about reviewing, but we also want you to leave your own comments. So the way that you can do that is you can start by clicking the Add Comment button at the top of the map. Let us know what category your comment is. This is just to help us with identifying themes. And you want to place that plus sign exactly where on the map you're trying to reference with your comment. You can navigate the map by, again, clicking and dragging to recenter where that icon is. You can zoom to get a little bit closer and more specific. I'm just picking something a little bit at random, but let's see. And I'll add test so that we know that it's not coming from the public here. But let's say this rapid route will help me get to the nearby park. Whatever you want to tell us about your needs or the projects that you see, there's just a couple of required fields, and then you can add comment. And first you'll see a confirmation, and then this will be posted shortly for others, for everyone in the public to see. And in the meantime, you'll also get an email confirming that we received your comment, and there's a link to come and confirm that it is actually in the right place where you wanted it. So that's everything that there's to know about this map. We're really excited to hear from everyone about what they think about the projects that we've identified and what else we should know as we look to develop our next regional plan. But with that, I'll stop sharing my screen and pass it back to the Southwest Strategies team to walk us through any questions you may have about what we covered today.
Thanks, Cecily. So before we wrap up, we reserved some time to take your questions. Because there's so many of you, we want to get to as many of your questions as possible. But if we don't get to all of them, we'll be sending out an email in the next week or two with the answers to any questions that we don't get to today. So with that said, if you have a question, please either type it in the chat or in the Q&A box that you'll find at the bottom of your screen. And I'll pass it over to Robin for the Q&A.
Thanks, Shannon. I'm just going to speak a little bit slowly to give everyone a chance to get their questions in there. And while we're waiting for that, I'll go ahead and introduce some more of our team. We've got our amazing regional planning experts here with us. You've met Tueri and Cecily already, but joining us also tonight is Jennifer Williamson and Rachel Kennedy, our regional planning program managers. You guys want to say hi?
Hello, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
There you are, just popped up. Okay, let's see how we're doing on the questions. So I'm just going to read these out, and then someone from our planning team hopefully is going to be able to help us answer these. And again, if we can't get to your questions tonight, please continue to submit those, whether online, through our email address. We'll give all of that information at the end of today's session, and check back to the Social Pinpoint site next week also, so we can keep talking. All right, let's start with a pretty straightforward one. Tueri, I think you can take this one. The question is, does the GHG reduction target for the 2025 Regional Transportation Plan, is that still 19%? So can you first tell us what is the GHG reduction target? What does that even mean? And then is it still 19%?
Yes, so GHG is greenhouse gas emissions. And so it's basically the pollution is a very simple way of saying that. And we are looking at still 19% for the 2025 plan. So the state of California, Department of California Air Resources Board, they set that target for us. And that was our target for the 2021 plan. And it's still our target for the 2025 plan, 19% by 2035 from the 2005 levels.
Is that a lot? Is 19% a lot?
Yes, and it's very difficult to reach that target and that's why we talked about the strategies, because it's not one single strategy or thing that we will do in the plan. It's not projects alone. It's also policies and programs that will help us to achieve that target.
Mm-hmm. We've gotten several questions tonight and folks asking for more information about the electric vehicle programs that I mentioned. So first, I just want to say, if you submitted a question about that and you'd like more information, please do put your email address in the chat or the Q&A box so we can send you additional information on that. But I'm going to ask a different question to you, Trey, given that a lot of times we get asked the question like, okay, well, why can't we just electrify the system and then we can meet our GHG targets that way?
Yeah, I mean, we wish it was that simple. So no, we can't just, there's a lot of different things in how the state asks us to show to them how we're going to be achieving that target. And so a lot of it is through, the emissions from vehicles, from passenger vehicles, so our regular cars. But there's only so much that, we're able to, I guess, when we're trying to achieve the 19%, we have many different things that we do to say, I'm going to get 1% reduction by this and 2% reduction by that. And the state doesn't allow us to take credit for all of the efforts they're doing. The state has their own targets. We have our own targets as a region. Many of you may live in a city who has their own climate action plan where you have different goals and the city has different goals they're trying to achieve. And we can't take credit for all of the efforts the state is doing to electrify, you know, personal vehicles. What we can take credit for and we can use towards helping to show how are we going to reduce, you know, greenhouse gas emissions and hit that 19%. It's just what are the extra efforts that we as the SANDAG region are doing in addition to what the state is doing. And so that's what we get to take credit for when it comes to electrifying the personal vehicle fleet.
Another related question that came up at our last board meeting actually is the state really looking at GHG reductions or greenhouse gas emission reductions or vehicle miles traveled?
So that's a great question. And it's, you know, I wish I had the state here to really explain it, but what I will say is that it's really both, because the way that the state looks at how we reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, they have different things that they're looking for us to show in our methodology. Like, how did you prove to us how you're going to hit that target? And they are looking and they're asking us to show them a trend in how vehicle miles traveled are going down. So they're saying that we see a direct linkage between the number of miles people travel and the greenhouse gas emissions. And we want to see the number of miles that people travel reduce, because that's how they measure and know that greenhouse gas emissions will reduce as well.
Thanks, Troy. So again, if you were one of the ones that had questions about the EV program, please do provide us with your email address and we'll be sure to follow up. I know there was a question about fuel cell hydrogen as well. That's also something that we're looking into and we'd love to share more information with you on that. Okay, so we also got a question asking how frequent are these meetings? I think that means like virtual meetings like this. We don't yet have a set schedule, but we certainly are planning to do these regularly, as well as having in-person opportunities to participate. So one of our commitments through the end of the year is making sure that we're always providing different modes of engagement. So if we're doing something online, we're also going to be in person somewhere throughout the region doing the same thing. So everyone always has different ways to participate. We're going to be in every single corner of the county between now and the end of the year. So as long as you sign up, we're going to make sure that you know any and all opportunities that you may have to be a part of this process. Okay, I'm going to throw this over to the planning team. We have a question. We were just talking about VMT or vehicle miles traveled. How does adding lanes to the highway impact VMT?
I can take a shot here, and if any of my other teammates want to jump in, feel free. But, you know, research has shown, and we use, you know, modeling tools to also help us to evaluate what it means when you add a freeway lane to a highway. And basically, it doesn't give you long-term congestion relief, and it does end up, you know, like attracting more trips and more drivers to that freeway. So when we're looking at trying to reduce the number of miles that people drive and ultimately thinking about solutions for how we can help ease congestion on certain corridors, the solution's not just only to widen, because research has shown, and it's also been through, you know, looking at different highways across, you know, all of America. Basically, you see when you add a lane, it may give you very short-term, you know, relief, but then ultimately what happens is that ends up filling up with more and more cars, and the congestion comes back to the same levels or worse than before the lane was added, and you do end up having people often driving more miles than previously.
And one thing I might just add on to what Tuari shared is that, you know, within the region and within the 2021 regional plan that SANDAG developed in cooperation with the community, is that we included a type of lanes called managed lanes, so similar to the express lanes that we have on I-15, where people who are driving in carpools or van pools can use those lanes for free. and people who are driving alone can pay a fee for using them. It also allows us to have transit, have a fast and reliable lane for the buses to run in. And those lanes affect the network differently than just adding a regular lane, as Tueri was describing earlier. So that's also a strategy that we have looked at in past regional plans and will consider in this next regional plan, as a way to offer more reliability within the roadway network, and also to be able to offer good reliability for our buses and carpool and van pool vehicles to have a faster and reliable travel experience.
Thanks, Rachel. Okay, Cecily, the next one is for you. We have someone asking for clarification on the social pinpoint map. Can you repeat for us, how can someone distinguish between a current and ongoing project versus, for example, an existing or an unchanged route?
Sure. It's a good question. And the map was really meant to show what the future network would look like so that we could find out where we might be missing an important connection that would help you get around and get to where you need. So it doesn't provide that detailed information about what is existing and unchanging, like a lot of the local bus routes, for instance, versus what would be new. So if you want to get more into those details, you could look at the 2021 regional plan and the list of projects, but feel free to also reach out and we can help answer any specific questions you have on a particular project.
Thanks, Cecily. Okay, Jennifer, I have one for you. We have a participant asking if there's a trolley line planned along the 805 freeway, National City to Kearney Mesa.
Yes, that's what we're calling the purple line. You may have heard of it. And it's not necessarily a trolley line. We're looking for a higher speed connection because we're planning that line all the way from the border region up through the 805 corridor, so Chula Vista, National City, and then it'll ultimately take you up to places like Mission Valley, Kearney Mesa, University City, and Sorrento Valley. So we're looking at more of a higher speed passenger rail type service.
Okay, and while we have you, Jennifer, I have another one that I know you'll know about. So this person's asking, the regional plan map shows quite a significant expansion of the next gen rapid bus network. Before we get to the question, can you explain what next gen rapid bus means?
Yes, so SANDAG has had a lot of success implementing rapid buses throughout our region. I believe we have about 7 routes now. But what we've learned from implementing those routes is that we can actually take them to the next level. So we're calling that our next gen service, which essentially means we're going to add more features like bus lanes and better priority so that the buses can travel faster and travel through traffic without experiencing congestion. So they're just taking what we have and making them even better.
Okay, so with that in mind, now can you tell us how soon do we envision these new next gen rapid routes coming online? And will there be an acceleration in their implementation if the 41, 471, and 625 routes are proven successful?
Yes, and somebody knows
Someone knows what they're talking
planning here. So the good news is that we are working very hard right now on developing these next gen rapid services. And the 3 routes that were just mentioned are the ones that we're actively engaged in planning right now. And you'll be pleased to note that in the plan, the next plan, we are proposing even more of these because we know we can implement them fairly quickly compared to the more intensive rail services.
Thank you. Okay, I think this next one might be going to Rachel or Tueri. Lance is asking us, how have we performed since the last regional plan? Do we grade our performance, and how can the public assess our reliability in planning?
Sure, so I can start off, and Tueri, feel free to add in. So within our 2021 regional plan, our Appendix B had a number of near-term implementation actions. So with transportation planning, it's sometimes a longer process and involves multiple steps to bring an idea to reality and being a project that people can use. So within the 2021 regional plan, we defined a number of near-term steps that were needed to help move different projects forward. So things like developing comprehensive multimodal corridor plans, which look at different projects within smaller geographies in our region. We have 6 of those that are under development, 4 that have just finished up, and we actually were able to use one of them recently to secure $103 million for a double tracking project on our Lausanne corridor up in North County. We have progress that's being made on our Purple Line study that's getting ready to kick off, to be looking at the initial planning for that new rail route. We have different efforts that are ongoing in broadband and deploying more equitable broadband access within the region, and a number of different efforts that were outlined within the plan. So we do have near-term steps that we are actively working on and engaging with the community and partners on to try and make the different projects in our plan a reality. And so those are a few examples. And we also have another report that SANDAG does on an annual basis called the State of the Commute Report, where we track a number of different pieces of data and metrics about travel patterns in the region and how long it's taking people to travel from certain areas of the region, certain air quality metrics. And we track that on an annual basis as well and publish that on our website. So those are a few of the things that we do to monitor our progress.
Thanks, Rachel. Trey, did you want to add anything to that?
Rachel did a great job.
All good. Okay. I'm going to combine the next few of these because I think they're related. So we have a few folks asking about specific improvements for specific geographic areas. For example, someone's asking about what we might be doing to help improve the commute from San Marcos to Camp Pendleton. Someone else was mentioning traffic and pedestrian safety in Point Loma. And someone else also was asking about the area near Snapdragon Stadium. So I was wondering if one of you could maybe first talk about the data that we have to help inform your planning, like our live work information, and then how we use that to focus on specific geographic areas and some of the improvements we're thinking through.
Yeah, I can jump in and answer that, at least get it started. There's a whole lot of different data that we use. As you mentioned, live work. So that just means looking at census data to understand where people work in the region, where people live in the region. There's also data that we collect on traffic volumes, especially on our freeways. And we can look at where there's a lot of congestion happening day after day. For example, we can use some anonymous cell phone data to understand the sorts of things like when people travel, how far they're traveling for in particular kinds of trips, and understanding what that trip is for. We can use the model to try and predict, if we put in some of these projects, how people's travel will change. And we use all of that to try to make the best connections for the region that help people to get where they need to go and access basic needs and opportunities.
Thanks, Cecily. Does anyone want to speak to any particular projects or plans we're working on, either in the North County, sports arena area, Point Loma, or near Snapdragon?
I'll take a moment for this. So just for Snapdragon, we actually have a study right now called the Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plan. That's just a big name. That means we're doing a planning study. But within that study is some more detailed analysis of what kind of improvements can happen around Snapdragon Stadium. So we all know it's growing, and if you've been to a game or a concert there, there's parking today, but in the future, you're going to need more options to get there. So our study is evaluating what those options are, and the results of that will feed into our regional plan. So we hope to implement those fairly soon.
Thanks, Jennifer. Okay, the next round of questions gets into pricing. So we have someone saying, even though it may be unpopular, I think congestion pricing on regional highway travel could still be a critical tool to reduce congestion and GHG emissions when combined with improved transit. Is this still being considered or is this off the table? And then at the same time, we have several people asking about the regional road usage charge, Tori, that you mentioned earlier, specifically asking, will a regional road user charge be part of the regional plan? We've heard that both a local and a state road user charge were being considered.
Yeah, I can jump in here. So I guess just to address the latter part of that first. So as I said in the presentation, and as we had on the slide, you know, we've definitely heard through the development now of the 2021 regional plan that, you know, the community does not want to see a regional road usage charge included in that. So I think, you know, it's currently underway for removing that as part of the 2021 regional plan amendment. And so we're not looking at that as part of the 2025. In terms of congestion pricing, you know, something that Rachel had brought up earlier was, you know, how we have a network in our current plan that's called managed lanes. And within those managed lanes, they do have what's out there today, actually on the Interstate 15. If any of you have ever driven in those express lanes, that is congestion pricing. So it is pricing access into those lanes to have a quicker trip, and it's offering you travel time reliability. We prioritize transit in those corridors, but we also allow people to basically buy into using it, and the cost of being able to use that facility is based on the level of congestion on the adjacent road freeway lanes that are beside it. And so I think that that's something, you know, we'll continue to look at. It's something that has been in prior plans, even before the 2021 regional plan, and it's something that exists right now in our region.
Thank you, Trey. I'm going to take a couple of the outreach questions. So Barry was asking if we have a community member on our board of directors. So our board of directors actually is defined under state law. State law tells us exactly who's going to serve on the membership. And what it tells us is that it's an elected official from each of the 18 cities plus the county. Those serve as our voting members. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we also have advisory members that serve on the board. That said, we do have several working groups where community members are participants. And one of the ones that you may be familiar with is our social equity working group. That's comprised wholly of representatives from some of our community-based organizations and is chaired by one of our board members as well, and plays a huge role not only in helping to develop the regional plan, but in helping to engage the rest of the region so that everyone can be a part of the regional plan as well. So thank you, Barry, for that question. Okay, moving on to the next one. Tori, I'm not sure if we have an answer to this one, but Mike is asking, will our EIR describe climate destabilization?
I do not have an answer to that one, but I think that's certainly one we could follow up with our environmental team to respond to.
Okay, thank you. Here's another outreach question from Tiffany. She's asking, sharing that she knows that the youth would like to be involved in future community feedback sessions and is asking if there's going to be virtual options for all of these sessions, as transportation is, of course, a common issue among the youth. And she's asking, what's the best way for us to stay updated on where these will take place? Tiffany, thanks for the question. We definitely want to make sure that we are engaging the youth. We're thinking about focused efforts actually to be able to have those conversations. But yes, like I said earlier, anytime we're doing something in person, we're going to make sure that there's a virtual or an online option to participate. And the best way to stay engaged and updated on all of those opportunities will be to sign up with your email address on our website, like Cecily was showing us earlier. And then the last slide of this presentation also will provide that information for you. And we're also going to follow up to this workshop to send everyone out information on how to stay engaged as well. So we look forward to continuing that conversation with you all. Okay, let's see, where are we going? Jennifer, I've got a couple questions for you. The first one, is there a way to report Pronto card reader issues?
Yes, there is. And there's a handy dandy phone number if you'd like to write this down. If not, we'll put it in the chat. It's the Pronto Support Center at MTS, fully designated to address whatever questions you have regarding Pronto cards. And the number is 619-595-5636.
And then can we just share what is a Pronto card?
Yes, we can. So the Pronto card is the fair payment card that you get. You used to get a monthly pass, and now the Pronto card is the card that you would use on the system. It's used for buses, trolleys, the coaster. We all use the Pronto card. And the good thing about the Pronto card is that you don't load it for just a month. You load it for the value. And if you only use transit 3 times a month, you still have the remainder of whatever you didn't spend on your card to use the next month. So it's just a little bit different from former monthly passes.
And then I'll just take this opportunity to share sort of the relationship between SANDAG and our transit operators or agencies. So you all may have heard of MTS and NCTD before. So whereas I said SANDAG plans and builds the regional transportation system, we partner then with MTS and NCTD to actually operate the transit systems for our communities. And then similarly, we partner with Caltrans for them to operate the regional highway system. And similar to that, we then partner with the local jurisdictions for the cities and the county to operate the local roadway systems. So another question related to transit, Jennifer, I'll give this one to you. We've actually got a couple people writing in and asking about restrooms for the public for when they're riding transit.
Yes, so restrooms we know are a very big topic for a lot of folks. And the good news is that we've heard you. We've heard you loud and clear. And in developing the regional plan, in fact, the 2021 regional plan included restroom facilities at all of our new transit systems. So any new rail system that would be built would include transit facilities. And we're going to be looking at retrofitting our rapid system with restrooms, as well as any next gen rapid routes that would be developed include funding for restroom facilities. So we have heard that loud and clear, and we are integrating that into our planning efforts.
Thank you. Okay, I think we have time for 1 or 2 more questions. Tuweri, this one's for you. Melissa's asking, will this regional plan be the same or different from the 5 Big Moves version?
Well, I think that you'll see some similarities, and I think certainly you're going to see some differences. When we developed the 2021 regional plan, we started development of that pre the pandemic, and now we're living in a post-pandemic world, and so there's certainly some changes in how people work in terms of telework assumptions that we would include in the plan. I think we're also really looking at, we heard from the community about needing to advance projects earlier and not think only about just the very long term, and what can we do to really make sure we're achieving that 2035 target. So I think that you'll see opportunities where we're going to try and leverage what can we do earlier as those short-term solutions while we're still working on planning for those longer term. So hopefully that helps provide a little bit of insight, but I think you'll see, yes, some of the things that you saw in the 2021, but we've taken the feedback that we've heard from the community, that we're hearing from our board, that we heard from the state agencies who've reviewed our plan, and we're hoping to incorporate that feedback into what becomes the 2025 plan.
Thanks, Trey. Let's see who's going to take this one. Might also be you. The question is, does the regional plan call for reduction of air pollution from the airport?
So, and Rachel can help me out if I say this one wrong, but basically when we're looking at our reduction related to our GHG emissions, it is looking at passenger vehicles, as that's what the state is asking us to look at. So Rachel, unless you know something different, feel free to chime in.
No, that's correct. And I would just add to it that in addition to the greenhouse gas reductions that Tuweri talked about earlier, We also have to look at other smog forming pollutants here in our region. And we look at those not just for our light duty, cars and trucks that many of you drive, but also commercial vehicles. And that's something that we have to take into consideration and make sure that we're meeting federal guidelines for those pollutants. But airplanes, which are the primary mode at the airport, those are sort of in a separate area of air quality. So within the County of San Diego, we have the Air Pollution Control District, and they work with a number of different sectors. So factories, power plants, the airport, the Port of San Diego and their boats and their vessels there. So that falls more under their purview. Not within our regional planning efforts, but obviously transportation to and from the airport, people driving or transit that is serving the airport is something that we take a look at in our regional plan.
Thank you, Rachel. Okay, I'm going to do one more question because I want to make sure we're respecting everyone's time. And just a reminder, if we didn't get to your question, please do continue to submit them. We're going to follow up with everyone. Got some more questions on the Pronto card, but I think we probably already covered those. Taking a quick scan. Actually, let's do this one also too, where we're getting a question about what we're doing to support broadband. The question, broadband needs coverage in low-income communities. How is this going to be addressed through the regional plan?
Okay, so in the regional plan, there are several policies that we have that are part of the plan. So I think, as I mentioned before, the plan is composed of projects that were typically is what most people think about in terms of like what transit projects we're going to put out there or highway, but there are also different policies, and broadband is something that our board has committed to supporting and working with some of our state partners when there's an opportunity to put fiber into the ground where you're opening up the roadway anyhow to do other roadway improvements. Is there an opportunity to add fiber and improve the broadband connectivity? And so we still look at being able to have programmatic level cost associated with how we can expand broadband within the region. It's also very important as part of really looking at a technology perspective. A lot of the transportation improvements that we're looking to do also heavily rely upon technology. And so expanding our broadband and the fiber that's in the ground also supports that. So I think low-income communities would certainly be part of that. I wish we had our digital equity team on this call tonight to maybe give you a little bit more insights. But it is part of one of the program areas that we look at as part of the plan.
Thank you. We also got a question, several questions about the United Nations. Can someone here tell us which are the agencies that actually review and approve the plan?
Sure. So we work with all of our board members, all of the local jurisdictions, our partner agencies here in the regions, the transit operators, the Airport Authority, Port of San Diego, our tribal nation partners within our region to develop the plan. And then as far as the agencies that approve our plan, there's two sets of approvals that happen. One at the federal level with the Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration that approve the federal components of the plan, and then a state approval that comes through the California Air Resources Board on the state components of the plan. So the United Nations is not an approving agency or a collaborating agency on the development of the regional plan.
Thanks, Rachel. Okay, and then our final question is actually a great segue into the final slide of our presentation tonight. And that question was, are we going to be providing all of this information via email and or on our website so folks can access it? And the answer is yes. As we mentioned earlier, we already know there's a lot to remember about all of the opportunities to get involved and all the information that we just shared. So we are going to be sending out announcements and reminders after tonight's workshop. You can get that information by signing up for our emails or following us on social media. If there's a question that you think of later that you want to ask, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You see all of the information on the screen here. We hope you continue to participate in all of these opportunities and share your transportation experiences and needs with us soon. Thank you all so much for coming tonight. We hope that this was helpful. Have a great evening.